not really emerge in the United States until the third phase in this history of American capitalism, the rise of manufacturing shops during the period 1840s to 1880s. That's when this occupational category of mechanical engineers was stabilized, and it became common to be able to call oneself a mechanical engineer. Now, that does not mean that mechanical engineering work and even the label didn't exist earlier. So let's take a look then at the rise of the discipline of mechanical engineering and its descendants. In developing this material, I want you to know that I've relied heavily on the work of many historians of engineering who have done a significant amount of research and writing in this area, especially the work of Monty Calvert, Ida Chronakis, David Noble, and Eugene Ferguson. I recommend to you their books and the works of many more. To that end, I'm going to be quoting extensively from their work to help you understand how they've interpreted this, the evolution of engineering education during this period. Let's go back now to stage one, pre-industrial America, pre-1810. There is a source, in a way, of mechanical engineering insight which lay in the activities and work of millwrights, the people who developed and built flour mills and other grain milling processes. The most notable is a man by the name of Oliver Evans, as reported by Eugene Ferguson, who lived from the 1750s until nearly 1820. He had developed an automatic flour mill. Now, this was a big deal. It was a big deal because basically he took a lot of pieces that were available and turned them into an operating machine. The concept of the machine in the late 1700s wasn't yet there. People thought in terms of tools, not machines. We take machines for granted, but try to put yourself in a context where you're working basically with tools. The pieces for an automatic flour mill had been around for a while. A bucket elevator, a screw conveyor, a horizontal screw conveyor, other conveying devices, something called a hopper boy. But what all this lacked, as Ferguson describes, was the concept of materials handling. It was Oliver Evans who added what Ferguson describes as, quote, the totally fresh concept of a continuous manufacturing process. Now, Oliver Evans was an aggressive entrepreneur. He patented this invention in the colonies, and then after the United States had been formed, he applied for and received the third patent in the history of the country. He published a book advertising the patent, basically, the book called The Young Millers and Millwrights' Guide. Anyone who adopted the model, even copying it from someone else, was supposed to pay a $40 fee to Oliver Evans for the use of this patent. And indeed, he spent a fair amount of his life traveling around and making people pay. One, for example, was Thomas Jefferson, who was really angry about this. From Jefferson's point of view, this so-called invention was nothing but a combination of old things, but he had to pay too. It's interesting to note, for example, that Thomas Jefferson had many fancy tools at his home, and if you've ever visited his home, you may have seen some of them, a writing implement, for example. But Jefferson never really developed the concept of a machine with materials handling. So, in the case of millwrights, we did have in a way, mechanical insight developing in the United States, very much practice-based, that served as a source of insight, technical insight, in what later became mechanical engineering. But these people were employed as workers' mechanics.